The Mediterranean stretched below like a sheet of cold blue steel, the kind that reflected sunlight with blinding arrogance. Flight Lieutenant Thomas Hale gripped the control column of his modified Spitfire, feeling the soft vibration of the Merlin engine humming beneath his feet. It was May 6, 1943, another day of war, another mission that could easily become a memory carved into the sea. His orders were simple: fly high, find the German supply convoy slipping through the narrow channel off North Africa, photograph everything, and return to Malta. No fighting. No heroics. Just pictures. The kind of mission that sounded routine until the first shadow appeared on the horizon. The air at 25,000 feet was thin and pure, but Thomas's thoughts were heavy. He knew this flight wasn't just another reconnaissance run. It was part of something larger, a piece of a puzzle the Allied commanders were trying desperately to complete before the next offensive began. Somewhere below, hundreds of men would live or die based on the clarity of the photographs he was about to take. His aircraft was a ghost of its former self. The armor had been stripped off, every unnecessary piece removed to make it faster, lighter, and more agile. The only weapons left were 2.303 Browning machine guns, barely enough for self-defense but kept on Thomas's insistence. 2 guns are better than none, he had told his commanding officer, half smiling, half challenging. His Spitfire carried 8 high-resolution cameras, mounted along the wings and fuselage, their shutters ready to record the enemy's secrets in cold silver frames. To most pilots, this stripped-down bird was a fragile scout. To Thomas, it was a scalpel, sharp, precise, and deadly when handled right. As he climbed higher into the sunlight, he could already see the faint shapes of the convoy below, moving like a dark bruise on the ocean skin. He adjusted the focus levers, prepared the camera triggers, and steadied his breathing. Each photograph he took today would be worth more than any bullet fired. Thomas descended slowly through wisps of cloud, careful not to leave contrails that could betray his position. The convoy came into view, 5 merchant ships guarded by sleek German destroyers, their decks bristling with anti-aircraft guns. Through his camera's lens, he saw the outlines of heavy crates and cylindrical shapes that looked suspiciously like tank turrets. If those were indeed Tiger tanks, it meant the Germans were reinforcing North Africa again. Every detail mattered: the number of ships, the arrangement of cargo, even the smoke trails. He began taking pictures, the cameras clicking in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then, in that deadly silence of the high sky, something shifted. A shadow crossed his canopy, faint but certain. He looked up, scanning the horizon, and there they were. 12 Messerschmitt Bf-109s, rising from the haze like metal predators. Their formation was tight, disciplined, and purposeful. They had spotted him. Thomas descended slowly through wisps of cloud, careful not to leave contrails that could betray his position. The convoy came into view, 5 merchant ships guarded by sleek German destroyers, their decks bristling with anti-aircraft guns. Through his camera's lens, he saw the outlines of heavy crates and cylindrical shapes that looked suspiciously like tank turrets. If those were indeed Tiger tanks, it meant the Germans were reinforcing North Africa. Thomas descended slowly through wisps of cloud, careful not to leave contrails that cool again. Every detail mattered: the number of ships, the arrangement of cargo, even the smoke trails. He began taking pictures, the cameras clicking in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then, in that deadly silence of the high sky, something shifted. A shadow crossed his canopy, faint but certain. He looked up, scanning the horizon, and there they were. 12 Messerschmitt Bf-109s, rising from the haze like metal predators. Their formation was tight, disciplined, and purposeful. They had spotted him. His training screamed one thing: run. That was standard procedure for reconnaissance pilots. Survival meant success. A dead pilot brought home no photographs. The PR Spitfire could outclimb and outrun almost anything in the sky if flown right, especially with its stripped weight. But Thomas didn't touch the throttle. He watched the fighters climbing, spreading out in a line to block his return path to Malta. They were smart, setting up an interception arc that would force him into the sea if he fled. He could almost hear their laughter through the radio static. Another unarmed recon pilot caught in the open, an easy kill. But something inside Thomas refused to flee. If he turned back now, the mission would fail. No one else would get through. The same result would repeat itself again and again until someone didn't run. He looked at the gauges, felt the vibration of the engine, and made a decision that defied both logic and command. Thomas flicked off the safety on his 2 guns and rolled the Spitfire inverted. The dive began like a scream. The world flipped upside down, and gravity clawed at him as he plunged straight toward the approaching Messerschmitts. Recon pilots didn't attack. That was the unwritten rule. But as the first German pilot stared up at the descending Spitfire, confusion froze his reflexes. Thomas opened fire at 300 yards, a long shot, but his aim was precise. The tracers walked across the enemy plane's canopy and engine cowling. Metal burst like fireworks. The Messerschmitt rolled, fire gushing from its fuselage, and fell into the sea. In seconds, chaos shattered the formation. German pilots scattered, shouting into their radios. They were hunters a moment ago. Now they were prey. Thomas leveled out, pulling the Spitfire into a steep climb. His hands were steady, his breath calm. Surprise was his only weapon, and he wielded it perfectly. The second Bf-109 came up behind him, fast and determined. Its pilot, angry at seeing a comrade shot down by a mere camera plane, pressed the attack. Thomas let him close in, pretending to flee, then snapped his Spitfire into a hard right roll and climbed in a tight spiral. The Messerschmitt tried to follow but couldn't match the Spitfire's turning rate. Thomas reversed the roll, dropped in behind him, and squeezed the trigger. A short burst, 3 seconds of controlled fire, and the German fighter broke apart midair. Flames licked its wings as it spiraled down. Thomas exhaled through clenched teeth. 2 down. But the others were regrouping now, learning, adapting. 10 fighters against 1, and his ammunition was running thin. Yet Thomas didn't panic. He'd studied German tactics. He knew their weaknesses: pride, predictability, and overconfidence. They came at him in waves, 4 from above and 6 from below, trying to box him in. The radio crackled with German chatter. He didn't understand the words, but he knew the tone. They were hunting him together. That meant he needed to break their unity again. Thomas dove toward the lower group, head-on, a move that shocked them. The Germans expected him to evade, not attack. His burst ripped through the lead fighter, the bullets finding the fuel tank. The explosion tore through the sky like thunder. The debris hit another plane mid-dive, sending both tumbling. Thomas banked sharply, using the confusion to climb again, but his ammo counter blinked red, less than 200 rounds left. That meant maybe 2 more bursts. He had to make each one count. Above, 4 Messerschmitts dove simultaneously, their 20mm cannons flashing. Shells tore through his left wing. Warning lights flickered, but the Spitfire kept flying. He felt every vibration, every shudder through the seat. His aircraft was bleeding, but it was still alive, and so was he. He rolled into a violent spiral, forcing the Germans to overshoot at their higher speeds. One of them tried to follow, and Thomas used that moment. He chopped the throttle, deployed flaps, and the Spitfire slowed like a brick in the air. The Messerschmitt flashed past him. Thomas fired his final burst, every bullet left in the belt, and the enemy plane exploded into shards. The guns clicked empty. Silence. The Spitfire's wings were riddled, its guns silent, and yet 6 of the 12 German fighters now burned in the water below. The rest circled above, cautious, watching. They had realized his guns were silent now. It was only a matter of time before they regrouped for a final, fatal attack. Thomas looked down and saw his last chance, the convoy itself. He dove straight toward the ships at full throttle. The altimeter spun madly. The German fighters followed, sensing the kill, closing in behind. But Thomas wasn't diving to escape. He was diving into chaos. He knew German ships were nervous and quick to fire at anything in the sky, even their own. At 5,000 feet, the first flak shells exploded around him, black bursts of smoke tearing the sky apart. He stayed level, threading through the storm, the Spitfire weaving between explosions as German anti-aircraft guns opened fire on everyone above. The chasing Messerschmitts flew straight into the trap. One exploded instantly, another clipped by shrapnel, tumbling down in flames. The rest broke formation, confused and terrified. Thomas skimmed the ocean at wave-top height, his aircraft shaking, the spray of seawater flicking across the canopy. The flak was still bursting above him, shredding the air where the Germans had been seconds before. He had turned the enemy's own defenses against them. When he finally pulled away from the convoy, the sky behind him was a black cloud of smoke and wreckage. Only 4 Messerschmitts remained, and none followed. They had had enough. They turned back towards Sicily, battered and humiliated. Thomas leveled his Spitfire, climbing slowly toward the sun, the engine coughing with fatigue. Oil leaked along the side of the fuselage, but the cameras, the precious cameras, were still running. Even as he limped toward Malta, they continued clicking, recording the convoy below, every ship, every crate, every burning fighter. When he landed at Lucca airfield, the Spitfire looked more like a survivor than a machine. Ground crews stared at the holes in the wings, at the missing pieces of tail, at the pilot who had somehow returned from a sky filled with death. Thomas climbed out, his flight suit soaked in sweat and oil, and simply said, "Ran into some Messerschmitts. They didn't like being photographed." When the film was developed, the intelligence officers stood silent. The photographs were perfect, sharp, detailed, irrefutable. They showed exactly what the Allied command needed to see: heavy tanks, fuel reserves, and supply lines heading toward Tunisia. But the gun camera footage, that told another story. It showed a reconnaissance pilot defying every rule, taking on a dozen fighters, and surviving. 6 confirmed kills, 3 more destroyed by collision and friendly flak, 9 enemies eliminated in one mission. His superiors didn't know whether to court-martial him or decorate him. In the end, they did both in spirit. The official report omitted the part about disobeying orders. Instead, it praised extraordinary courage and decisive action under extreme pressure. He received the Distinguished Service Order, and his story spread across the airfields of Europe like wildfire. Pilots whispered his name in mess halls, and even German squadrons began to treat RAF reconnaissance planes with new respect, because they could never know which one might be Thomas Hale. In the months that followed, Thomas continued flying missions, his legend growing with every sortie. He became the model of a new kind of warrior, the fighter who used intellect as his weapon and broke rules not out of arrogance, but out of understanding. His photographs changed the course of battles. His choices changed how intelligence was gathered. Historians would later call his mission a study in economy of force, achieving maximum impact with minimum means. But Thomas never thought of theory. He thought only of the blue sea, the thin air, and the moment when orders and reality collided. He flew again and again until, one spring morning in 1944, his Spitfire vanished over Germany. No wreckage, no distress call, only silence. Some say he was shot down. Others believe he was working for intelligence on secret operations. Whatever the truth, Thomas Hale's name became more than a story. It became a symbol of courage, the kind that doesn't shout or seek medals, but simply acts when the moment demands it. And in that high empty sky above the Mediterranean, where the light turns the sea into silver, one can still imagine the glint of a lone Spitfire diving through clouds, cameras ready, courage burning, and orders forgotten.